Hey guys, it's Brandon here, and in today's video we're going to be doing a brake job on my 2017 BMW M4. We're going to be doing the front and rear pads and rotors. And the first thing you're going to want to do is get it up in the air. I'm using the quick jacks, as you can see, but this is also doable on jack stands. And then we're going to take the wheels off, which is a 17 millimeter. I got the wheel off now, and the next thing you're going to want to do is take notice of how the holes are going in your brakes. So in the front here, the holes are going to the back. In the rear here, and I don't have this wheel off yet, the holes are also facing towards the back, making a swooping motion towards the back of the car. Same thing on the driver's side front here. You could see the holes are facing towards the back of the car. And it's going to be the same thing on the driver's rear here. I only mention that because the brake kit I got, it was on the cheaper side. I got it from Brake Performance out of California. It only cost me 600 bucks, but as you can see, they're one piece. It's not semi-floating like the OEM ones are here, where you have little holes in between where the rotor and the hub are. So these are not like that. They're just one piece, but they do have the drilled. So from Brake Performance, as you can see here, they do Dremel on each of the rotors. This one says PSF, which would be passenger side front. However, the way they do it, the P and the D are very similar to each other. I opened all the boxes just to get a better view. So always go through and just make sure that the grooves on your rotor would be going the right way. So right before we start doing anything major, we're going to want to remove this cover here, which is held on by three 10 millimeter quarter turn bolts and one pop tab right here. We can take this off and just inspect the brake fluid level. If it's too tall, when we press the calipers in, it might overflow. I've personally never had that problem, but it's still always good to make sure in case the last guy who did the brakes is overfilled. Plus it's a good idea to look, as you might be low and not know it yet. I got the cap off now, and as you can see, my brake fluid is actually right in the middle between the minimum and the maximum, so pretty good. And if you're like that, you don't see any fluid build up above this screen here, it should be okay to press the calipers in and not have to do anything. If you did have any issue, just siphon some brake fluid out, or while you're doing this, you could also do a brake flush. Just to be extra safe though, because brake fluid is corrosive, I'm just lining the whole thing in a paper towel. That way if anything does spill out, it'll just get soaked up there and not fall down into the bay in there where there's a bunch of paint. Moving back down here now, we are on the passenger side of the vehicle, going to be doing the passenger first. Doing this job, because you're not going to bleed the fluid, it doesn't matter which order you go in. You can start with the rear, you could start with the fronts. It doesn't really matter. So the first thing you're going to want to do is remove this 5 millimeter Allen here and this 5 millimeter Allen here. These are not super corroded, so we're going to see how they come out. They do not look to be rounded over either. If they are, just hit them with some PB blaster or any kind of rust breaker and then let it sit for a little while. If those strip out, it's a huge ordeal to get them out. I've had that happen more than once. So just trust me on that. Use the PB blaster if they're pretty corroded. So I tried it and I put the Allen in there and it started to move a little bit, but the bolt wasn't moving. So I didn't want to risk it. So I am going to spray it. I just put some blaster on there now. In the meantime though, we can take out these two retaining pins that hold the calipers in. These pins go all the way through and you start in the front here and just bang them out. You're going to need a little punch or something. So I have this little thing here. It fits perfectly right in there, and you could just punch these pins out of the back. So here's a good shot here. I'm banging the pin out through like this, and as you can see, it's coming out of the back. Once you get far enough, you probably can get back there and just pull it right out. And this is the perfect size punch to just go right through here as well. This punch, by the way, is a 1/8 size punch. So I was able to get most of this by hand, but for the last little bit here, I'm putting some pliers on the very end, right before where this little snap ring is here. And I'm just twisting it around and just slowly wiggling it out. So here they are out here. This would be the back, this is the front. This one was on the bottom and this one was on the top. And if you put them next to each other, they are the exact same, so they can be swapped around. The next thing you're gonna wanna do is get this metal retaining clip out that holds the calipers in. And you can just get a screwdriver here. And as you can see, you could start to move it already. This will just come right out if you just pry on it. So what I did here, because I was having a little bit of trouble with it, is you start at the top here, or the bottom, it doesn't really matter. But you move this whole assembly over to one side, then lift the one tab out till it rides on this piece here. Then you can push it back over as best you can, usually persuading it with a screwdriver, to pull it this side on top of this metal here, and then this whole thing can come out. And then you can just pull the whole thing right out like this. If you do go and try to pop it out a different way, just be careful as it is all springy, so it could shoot at you. But doing it that way was definitely a lot easier. So I'm taking this metal retaining ring off. I don't really know what this is for. I think it was stuck to the wheel or something. But anyway, now you have a better look at these bolts here. So I'm gonna spray even more blaster on them just to make sure I can get them out. All right, so I'm not ashamed to admit it. I committed the cardinal sin and just threw an impact on these, no regard for if it was gonna move or not, and they rounded out. So now I'm gonna use the speed outs here. These things are great. You can tell I use them all the time, so I don't know what I'm doing. You just drill in with the one side in reverse thread, and then you can reverse it right out. So these should work no problem to get these two out. Honestly, I'm sure all four corners are gonna be like this. Seems to happen every single time, no matter what car you're working on. And I have to look through the kit, but I'm pretty sure the kit I got does not come with replacement set screws. So I'm gonna need to order up a couple of them. So the next step, while we're still trying to get the rotor off, is gonna be to remove this bolt here at the bottom and this one here. These two hold the caliper on, so once we disconnect these two, we can remove this whole caliper. And then usually you'd like to hang it up somewhere like on the strut or something so the brake line doesn't have a bunch of tension on it. Or you can put a jack under here and just leave it on there. And these two bolts are 18 millimeter. All right, so the next thing I did was just hang the caliper off of here like I suggested. This is just an old coat hanger that I unraveled and use it for stuff like this. And in the effect of full transparency, I too completely destroyed this. I went through, had to drill these out. I couldn't get them out with the speed outs. They were too corroded in there. So I ended up drilling them out. It's off now. So you can lift this off. Now there's these three studs that'll stay here. This I think can come off as well. And now I have the screw, what's left here, which is good. I didn't damage the hub or anything, so it's not a big deal to do this, but it's just so much more effort. The only other thing I could have done, and I wish I thought about it because I've done it like this on my old 328, was weld a nut to one of these before I take the rotor off and then try to impact that off. I didn't even think about it. I was just gung-ho with the impact and the gun. So anyway, I got to get those screws out now, which kind of sucks, but that's how it goes. This car isn't really that corroded. I know we're looking at pretty bad brake rotor right here, but if you saw the H&R suspension video that I did, everything came off like super easy and was super nice to work with. So I kind of had a good idea coming into this, and these parts just get so destroyed. So as you can see on here, I drilled these out like that. And the drill bit I used, in case this happens to you, this size was perfect, is going to be a 27/64. So if you guys are doing this and you've never drilled anything out before, ideally you get your hole right in the middle. It didn't work out on this one super well, but I got a bit that goes just in between here. You can drill out of the back too. It's not a problem. Just make sure it's facing, you know, in a way where it wouldn't impact anything like the seal back here. And then once you get a little bit of it done, you just take your tap like we used before on the brakes and you just beat in the parts that are weak. And then eventually you can pop all of them out and the thread should be just fine. If not, you're gonna have to retap them. And with my luck, we're probably gonna have to. So we'll see what happens. All right, guys, so now that you got the threads broken out, the old screw drilled out and broken out, you can see I don't have quite all of it out yet. And I am gonna need to retap these holes. It's like this on both sides. This one's a little worse, but shouldn't matter. Also, just for fun, I decided to try to do both rears and the other side on the front, and all of the screws came out no problem. As you can see, these two are just fine. I got the ones out of both sides of the rears just fine. They came out without issue. So yeah, that's how this goes. You're always gonna have one problem one, it seems, and it's always gonna be the first one. So anyway, what I'm gonna do now is retap these, and the thread pitch for these is an M8 by 1.25. So I just got these drilled out now. What you're gonna wanna do first to get the hole back to normal is first drill it out with a 1/4 inch drill bit, and then step up 1/16 to a 1764. That way you can go right through with that, and it's a really good fit for the tap, which can start right in there like so. So if you don't have wheel studs like this, it's a lot easier. You can do it with a normal tap set. I don't really want to take mine out, so I'm going to try it with a drill, just real slow. Always make sure to oil this up as well, so it's got some back and forth in there. This is kind of like a whole ordeal to do this. So if you haven't done it before, just take your time, and it's better than buying a whole new hub. So here's the first hole retapped. This is with the bolt from the other side. I am going to be replacing all these anyway, because you can buy 4-packs for cheap. So, but that's just a check. So what I like doing here, the best way to do it is I got the whole thing all the way through. And what I like to do, especially with this setup, put the tap on the end of a drill bit, get a little oil cap here. This is just from the top of when I did the oil change. Just dip this in the oil, and then I'm recording with the one hand, but hold the hub with your one hand, and then go in and start it, and just go a little bit. You'll feel it start to tighten up. Then what I like to do is never hit back on the drill, just always keep it in forward. What you can do is when it starts to bind up, you can then release the drill and manually move your hand around. And then what you want to do is move it around a little bit, back and forth like this, while you're still in there. Then go all the way this way as far as you can, and then hit the trigger to tighten it back up, and then manually rotate your hand down. And then just keep doing that the whole way and hitting the trigger manually back down until you're all the way through. And it should be like this when you do it. It should just, oh, gotta hold it with one hand. Try to get it with my knee there. It should just go all the way through at the end, just like that. And that's how you know you did it right. And then you could check it against any other screws if you have any. Again, this tap is an M8 by 1.25 thread pitch, and that is for the stock bolt size. I also wanted to mention the oil that you lather on the end of the tap is super important, especially after you start going. You're going to want to take it out and clean off all the threads and then keep going. Once you're about halfway through, you could stop doing that, but I only like to go a couple passes and then clean it and re-oil. So I'm doing the second one now. I'm like halfway through the starting. As you can see, there's a bunch of material starting to build up coming out of these holes. This is when I know I want to back off now, re-oil, and clean the threads. All right, guys, so I've secured some new bolts. I got these for $5 on Amazon, a set of 4 of them. And when you're putting the rotor on the front now, just make sure to line up the 2 set screw holes with each other, and the other 3 tabs will just fall right into place. Then, as you can see, the rotor likes to rock here. So when you just push it on, then you can put the set screws in, and I will be putting a little bit of anti-seize on these. Putting them in there, hand tight again. You don't have to crank on them too much. And then we will start doing the caliper. Now the rotor is on. I got both the set screws in, and all of these sit pretty much flush. And again too, you just want to make sure the drilled parts here are angled toward the rear of the car, so like facing the door there. If they're going this way, it's for the other side. The next step is going to be compressing the 4 pistons, 2 on this side and 2 right here on the actual rotor itself. What you're gonna need for this is a brake compressor tool. Something like this does the trick. And basically this is just a ratcheting mechanism that lets this one side extend outwards, or if you flip the ratchet, you know, put it back in. This way we can shove this in between there and push both of the pistons on each side until they're flush with the rubber seal here. So I'm gonna go in through the back here, angle it up, and then just start pressing these in. And remember as well, you're going to want to have the brake reservoir here cracked open. I've already done the rears, which we'll get to later in this video, but you'll see why I'm filming it out of order. And I don't have enough in there for it to bleed over, but if you do, you might have to siphon some of it out. So now I have my tool in here. As you can see, I'm pressing down all 4 pistons at the same time. It's very crucial you do this, as if you just press one in, the other one will just come out farther. So you do need something in here that can press all 4 at the same time. And then with this tool, it just ratchets back and forth and it slowly compresses this. And as you'll see, I'll show it just after, we will compress this all the way in. So here we are here. These are all pressed in. This bottom one's a really good angle because it's only half on. You can see it's even. Same thing with these here, same thing with the bottom one. We're completely pressed in now. So now what we can do is remove the tool. We can reattach this caliper. I just go hand tight with the bolts for now, and then we can slide the pads in through the back. The rotor is reinstalled now, no pads in it, and as you can see, these are still decompressed in there. You're gonna wanna get these bolts hand tight. You don't want the rotor moving around at all. You want it to be set up how it would be. And the next thing we can do is get the pads and we will slide them in here. Here's one of the front brake pads that came with the kit. As you can see on these tabs up here, there's an R and an L, stands for left and right. And what would happen is when you're reading the pad from the back like this, however you would see it, is the way it goes in. So obviously the friction material goes towards the rotor, but it would go right would be on your right, left would be on your left. So this pad would go in here. And then when you flip it around, it's the opposite way now, and this pad would go here. So what I like to do as well is get a little bit of grease and grease up the leading edge, as well as the pistons just a hair. Here's the grease I'm using. It's the True Glide multi-purpose, and this does not, it has a very high temperature rating and will not gum up. So what you do here is, like I said, just grease up this metal piece here, just very slightly is all we need. Same thing on the other side, just this metal piece here. Make sure to get none of it on the actual pad itself. And then what I like to do as well is just put a little dab on the actual rotor, or not the rotor, on the actual piston of each side of the brake here. Just a little dab on those and get it around there, just so it doesn't seize to the back of the pad. Here's how much grease I used. As you can see, barely anything at all. And then same thing in there, you can barely even see it. Just kind of wiped it around my finger. Don't want to do a lot because you definitely don't want to make sure you get it on the rotor. And now what we can do is you can take one of the pads, and because everything is compressed, these will just slide right in, just like that. We can do the same thing for the other one, and then we can put the pins through. Both pads are in, and then I like to take both pins, get them started through the holes in the pad. You can see them right here. Here's a good, these holes right here. Both sides there. Then what we can do is, you don't want them going through all the way yet. We're going to grab our spring here. We're gonna wanna put this in like this. Put one of these over top of it like this. make sure we can go, and then it can rest here. See if we can get the pin through the other pad, which I'm looking should be just like that. So now that's resting here. That you could see is going to go through there. Then what we can do, same thing on the bottom. We want to make sure the actual tab is going to sit right in here, the pins that come through. Then what we can do is when we push this one down, we just hold this down with our fingers, slide this across, put that one in like this. And there we go. Everything's lined up. And this is all retained very nicely. Then we can get behind here with a mallet and a punch and just punch these in. So I did move the assembly a little bit just to get a better angle on it. But as you can see, everything is in here now. Here's how far these pins go in on the back. They're pretty flush, they stick out just a hair. Here's how far they are on the front. Top and bottom are even. Everything in here is all nice and clamped down and good. The rotor should spin freely still because these pads are pressed all the way in. The caliper shoes here, they're all the way in. So this kind of just spins freely until we hit the brake and pump everything back up. The next thing we're gonna wanna do is tighten down the 18 millimeters here. You are supposed to get new ones of these or switch to the upgraded torque style. However, I'll be reusing mine and then putting a Sharpie line after it's torqued down to see if they're gonna back out or not. And the torque spec for these is 110 Newton meters. So now these two 18 millimeters are tightened down. It's 110 Newton meters. I'm gonna put my Sharpie mark on across to the arm here just to make sure they don't back out. And this side is done now. So what we can do now is just put the wheel back on. 105 Newton meters for the studs or the bolts. Torque spec for those. And this side is all set. I'm gonna do the driver's side now. And I'll update the video if there is anything different. However, the only thing I'm thinking that's going to happen is on the driver's side, there is a wear sensor wire. Now, I'm going to be reusing these, so I just take them out, clean them off. My kit did not come with new ones. If yours did, you're gonna wanna follow this wire all the way up to here, and into this box here, which it's going to be the one, if you open this up here, it's going to be this one here. You can take this out, unplug it, and put your new one in and reroute it the same way. I do want to mention that the zip tie trick works a lot better than the coat hanger, or if you don't have like a dedicated thing to hold this. There's two zip ties strung together, holds the caliper up. I did this on the rears, you're going to see later in the video. And the only other thing I want to mention is these thin metal retaining rings, that one goes on the hub here and the other one goes on front of the rotor. I'm not going to be reusing these as they just prevent the corrosion from keeping the rotor on the, like keeping it from seizing to the wheel or the hub. However, this car doesn't see inclement weather, so I'm just gonna not be reusing these. But if you do see inclement weather in your car, you're gonna want to put this on at least where it meets the hub here, just to make it easier to break free in the future. There is one other thing I wanna mention, and I touch on it at the end of the video, is when you are handling brake rotors, you never wanna grab on the part that's the friction surface. When you're like installing, I always try to grab the top or in the hub here. And then it's always optional too to brake clean these. Just hit both sides with them. If the rotors are greasy, because sometimes they'll grease them up in order to keep them from rusting and shipping, you're gonna want to brake clean all the grease off, or that could be pretty bad. These though ship dry, so there was no grease on these, so these did not have to be brake cleaned. However, on the front I did do it anyway. On the rear, I did not. The front is all set now. Only thing that did change, like I said, you put the brake pad sensor in, goes on the rear pad here. You'll see the little notch for it. You can even see it on this one here. It's on this side. And that just slides right in. You can put it in after the fact. You don't need to attach it to the pad first. And if you're having trouble getting it in there, I use a little screwdriver to just press on the head of it here. And then once it seats in, you can feel it and it won't want to go anywhere. So the front is all set now. Next part of the video, we'll be doing the rear. All right, guys, so while I wait for the screws in the front, we're gonna do the rears. In the video, I'm gonna have this after we complete the front. So to start on the rears here, you're gonna wanna take first and undo the 2 set screws just like the front. These set screws though are 6mm, and they also look slightly different. They have a protrusion here. These came out no problem for me. So you're gonna wanna take both of those out, 6mm Allen. Then the hub will be ready to come off eventually. Then what we're gonna wanna do is come back here and remove these 2 bolts, one here, right here, and the other one right here. This is what holds the caliper on. So these are both going to be 16mm. Now that these 2 bolts are out holding the rotor on, we're going to remove the caliper. To remove the caliper, there's going to be 2 bolts that hold it back here. One is going to be right here, and the other one's right here, and these are 18mm. So I got both of these bolts loose now. I got the bottom one out. This one's just threaded in a little bit, still holding the caliper on. You're also going to want to now get ready your caliper hanger. I'm using it still on the front over there. So instead, I have 2 zip ties that I'm going to put through the hole, and then probably just hanging around something down here. I'll show you guys after I do it. Before we do that though, we are going to want to punch out these 2 little pins here that hold the 2 brake pads in. We could wait until after, but this is a really easy time to do it while it's still assembled to the hub here. So you're just going to want to get your punch again, punch both of these out, and be careful. This retaining spring, unlike the front one, does not have little clasps on it that will hold it in between these. So once you take one of these out, this will possibly spring out, or you could just pull it right out. So I have one pushed out now, most of the way here. I'm just gonna get pliers on the back here and then start to pull this out. Again, the easiest way to do this is just get pliers, wiggle it back and forth as it slowly comes out, and be careful, as right where my arm is here, the spring that is retaining will might spring out at you once you release one of the pins. I did get the first pin out and the spring retainer is still in there. So now what I'm going to try to do is just wedge it out a little bit, and if that doesn't work, I am just going to take the bottom retaining clip off anyway. I got this bottom one out now. This was fighting me tooth and nail. You could see that I actually marred up the caliper a little bit, and I'm not super happy about that. Really nothing I could do though, you know, it was just slipping off because it just would not come out. Eventually though, I persuaded it. Now we can just take the pads right out, and then the whole rotor can come off, or you can, because we already undid the bolts in the back here, we can just take this whole assembly right off. So I'm taking the pads out now, and the rear pad in the caliper will have a sensor level on it. So you're gonna wanna pry that off, and I'll be reusing these, so I'm not gonna trace the wire back and take it all out. But if your kit comes with them, you can replace these, and I'll show you where you unhook them. The rotor is off now, and here's where I just zip tied it to, is this arm here, and right around one of the, where the bolts go, right here. This is just flapping. So now that can just hold there, no tension on the rubber brake line, which is what we want. So now that that's all set, I'll show you where this sensor line runs. So right through here, you'll see it come up through here. Then it's gonna run along these here, and you're gonna wanna disconnect these. And then you can see right behind the spring here, there's this white piece. One of the lines runs right through there, so you're gonna wanna disconnect this. These just pry right open. Get that out. Then on this side, there's another one right there, another white piece that holds the lines. One of these lines is the wheel speed sensor, so remember to trace your line carefully. And then you'll come to this door here. You can open this up, and behind this here is where the sensor will be. If this you have trouble staying open with it, all you need to do is take a 10mm and remove this here. Then this whole piece can come off. So here we go here. I just have this open. It's just these two little tabs that are in here. I just used a screwdriver to pick them open. And the middle one here is the caliper sensor. So this can just come right out like this. You can disconnect this plug from here, plug your new one in, and reroute it the same way. Now the next step is going to be taking off the rotor hub here. Usually, because of how these are designed, there's water that gets in there and then it rusts together. If you were able to get these out, it's a good sign this isn't super rusted, but you're still going to want to beat on it to get it off. You know, put a lug nut in or have the wheel studs like this so it doesn't fall on you because they're pretty heavy. But other than that, I'm just going to beat around here with a rubber mallet is the best way to do it until this starts to come off, and then you can just remove it. So mine is just wiggling right off, as you can see. I didn't even have to tap on it. I just grabbed it and started pulling. And if you feel a lot of resistance, make sure your parking brake is off. Because the boots in here are pressing against this. So just make sure the parking brake is off so you can get this off. All right, guys, I got it off now. It wasn't too bad. As you can see though, the corrosion on the inside here where the parking boots rest is pretty crazy. So that might be why you were having a little bit of trouble getting it off if you were. And same thing here. These are pretty corroded, just like rust and stuff. I'm gonna try to clean these up a little bit. Don't put anything, obviously like oil or anything on them as you don't want it lubricated. So I'm just gonna like rough these up a little bit just so there's a little less stuff on them. And then you can do the same thing for around here. Because of the hub design and just how the rear wheels are with how much action they see for the weather, you can clean up any of this too if you want. All right, so I just hit this with a wire brush quick, you know, just to get some of the loose surface stuff off. You don't want to go crazy. I hit the studs too and everything in there just real quick. And I didn't even notice this before, but if you get the same kit I have, where these set screws are, you'll have the doweled out bits for the rear set screws. And the front, they are different. They are just a little bit smaller, and they don't have that second ridge in there because the set screws are different. So that's an easy way to tell rear as well from the front. As well as these holes, because they are directional, you want these holes facing back towards the car, almost like a mohawk or something. And now we can just put this on. Just remember to line the set screws up with where the two holes are, because there are no dowel pins on the back, unlike the front. All right, so that just slid right on, no problem at all. It was perfect. Went right over the parking brake, no problem. It's all fully seated now, which is super nice. Now I'm gonna put the set screws back in. These are really only good for holding the rotor in place, so there's no torque spec that I know of for these. Just put them in hand tight, and if you want to be able to get them out again, put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads just at the very end. That way, if you ever need to do the rotors again, these will come out easier and won't strip out. All right, so as you can see, just put a little bit of anti-seize on the end there, and now I'm going to put them both in, and the rotor is on. The next step is going to be getting a brake shoe compressor here. So this is the one I have. It's long enough to do the front, I hope. And basically what it does is it just presses in both sides of the cap at the same time. This way, when you push one side in, the other side doesn't just open up. It keeps them both spread out. That way we can put this back on, put the pads in, and everything's all set. So the way this works is I just shove it up in between the two round pieces there. You could see one on this side and then one on that side. Shove it up in between those and compress it all the way. And then I can reinstall this rotor piece here, or this caliper here, and then put the pads in on the side and the new pins in. Also remember to open up your brake reservoir now, or have it still open from the first time we did it, and so nothing can spill out. So I just got the calipers or the pistons in there spaced apart. The best way to do it with a tool like this is to go in from the top and then just work your way in. Now it does taper on the bottom here, as you can see. These are kind of at an angle. It should get it enough to do it. If not, you're gonna need to reposition and try again. I'm gonna see how this is, and if we need to redo it, I will. So it is actually all set. As you can see, those pistons are pushed all the way in on both sides there. It's perfectly flat. So now, eventually they will start pushing their way out again. So you don't really have unlimited time to do this. So now what we're gonna do is cut the zip tie and reinstall the two screws, just hand tight for now. We don't need to crank on them yet. And then we can put the pads in. All right, guys, so now you can see I have the two 18mm bolts back in, the one here and then the one below it. I got them hand tight now, they're not torqued down. And I also was reading that you have to replace these with the new hex and torque style. However, I didn't buy those, and I'm just gonna reuse these to the recommended foot poundage and then a little bit more because I believe they're torqued to yield. And I'm also going to mark with a Sharpie on them to get their direction, and then check back in a little while after we drive the car a little bit and see if they've tried to back themselves out or not. All right, so here's the rear brake pads that come with this kit. You're also gonna get new retainers in here and the bars. So as you can see here on this side, it says L and R, and it says this on both. These are identical pads, non-directional. So what you can do is you always want to have the, like when you're reading them, the way it would be. So this one with the left on the left and the right on the right, this pad would go in like this. And then the other one, if you picture you are standing on the other side, this would be the right, this one would be the left. And sure enough, there we go. So that's how they would go in. Obviously, you can't put them in backwards anyway, but that's just what the L and the R are to be as you would read them if you're looking at it. What we can also do is just apply a little bit of oil or grease on the leading edge of each side of the pad here, so just this thin side. And I also want to point out that on these, it looks like it's made out of some sort of rubber to where you don't need to install any. And on the OEM ones, and this might just be from age, this looks to be metal. So I'm not sure if it's actually necessary or not, but I've always put a little bit of grease on the leading edges here, and also on the very back, just where the circular piston is. I reach my finger in there and I just smear a little bit of grease right on where the piston is. So for the little bit of grease I'm going to use this True Glide multi-purpose synthetic grease. Reading on the back here, it will not melt or form little gummy deposits, which is super nice. So I'm just going to do just a little bit of this where I just mentioned. So this is what I'm talking about, literally just the tiniest amount there on the leading edge. Make sure obviously not to get any on the actual pad part itself. And I've already put this one in. These literally will just slide right in because of how depressed the calipers are. So there we go. All set now. We can put the middle retaining bracket in, and then we can push the new pins in from the back. So right now I have both of the pins started, as you can see, but they are not protruding anything more than the new silver pieces on the first pad. Now what you can do is install the retention like clamp. So basically these two little pieces are gonna slide above these little divots here. So this will sit in like this. Mine have this little retention clip on the top, and I'm not sure why. I'm pretty sure this is a universal piece that can go with a bunch of different brakes. The OEM one, I did double check to make sure. It is here, does not have that. So it doesn't really matter because it sticks up at the top anyway. So I'm probably going to put in one side, slide the retention clip through this one, the one with this little bracket piece on, and then I can push this side down and slide the pin in. Then you're gonna wanna tap them in from the back. So going and doing it, the easiest way to actually do it is going to be to push the first pin all the way through. And then I still didn't clamp it down yet, but you could see in here I pressed it so the clamp, like little retaining ring on it, is starting to go in. And you can see in here, it'll focus here, it is starting to go in there and it doesn't want to like wiggle around or move. Then what you can do is on the ring, the first retaining thing here will sit right here. So how you can do it is you can go in here like this, go underneath it, and then clamp it down. So it'll be like this. Then what you can do is you can just press this down and push the other clip through, and then we can pound them in from the back. All right, so it's all in now. Work just like I said, put the top piece in first, the first pin here. Then you can slide this underneath and put this one in, push down on this one and get this pin started in here. Then what I did was I took a screwdriver and placed it at the very bottom here and just pressed it in, and I just shoved this pin all the way through. Now what we can do is just tap them in so they come all the way through again. And now's a good time, or actually before would have been a better time, but now's a good time to take the clip and push it back into the piece there. I'm actually gonna clean mine up because again, it's used. If you have new ones, it's not a big deal. And if we need to take this back out again, we can, but I'm pretty sure we won't have to. If you're watching this video ahead of time, definitely worth putting this in first. I just wasn't even thinking about it. So that was actually super easy. All you do is just push it right in there, and then I just used a little screwdriver and just pushed it right on the top, and it just went right in. And then you can run this line right through this little hole here. You could see it on this side because these are mirror pieces here. You can just push it right through there. There's nothing in the way with this clamp or anything like that. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to hammer in these two pieces here. You can see a little bit of the retaining collar is still sticking out from when I pressed them in by hand. So we're just gonna put our little tap on that and then tap them in. They should stop, and they shouldn't go all the way through because of how they're built. So just once they stop, they're all set. You can also tell by the front. And then we're going to torque these two 18 millimeters down to 110 Newton meters. Here we go. Here I got the two retaining pins in. As you can see, this is how far they should be sticking out with this kit. I compared it to the stock ones, and in the front, they're perfect. And in the rear here, you can see they're pretty much all the way in there, and they will not go any farther. And then again, we can torque these down right now to 110 Newton meters each. All right, that is it for the rears. And now we can just put the wheels back on. The stud bolts for the wheels are 105 Newton meters. That's the torque spec for those. And other than that, that should be everything. I also did want to show up here that when we compressed that rear caliper, I didn't have any spillage or even anything come up. So maybe after doing all four, we might have a little bit, but because of where my fluid was, I don't think we'll have any problems. Now I'm going to do the driver's side rear. If anything changes, I'll make sure to put it in the video. So I'm on the driver's side now, and nothing is different, but I do want to mention that this is getting stuck on the parking brake a lot, and I think it's just because of how it's worn like the other one was. So, you know, if you get it like this far, where it's obviously not seized to the hub, but you're still wiggling it back and forth and it's just not coming, Just keep going. It eventually will come off, and you're not going to hurt anything with the parking brake by wiggling it. And if you do need to, you can put a hand down here and a screwdriver in the vents up here, and then try to wiggle it off that way as well. Eventually it will come off, and then we can clean it up. So the driver's side rear is all set now. It is the same exact process as the passenger side rear that I just showed. The only exception being there is no wear sensor on the driver's side, so you don't have to worry about any of that. The only other thing I want to mention is that if your rotors have a slight film of oil on them, what you're going to want to do is take some brake clean here, the brake parts cleaner, and then just spray these down both sides. You can still do it here, it's just a little harder. It'd be better to do this before the rotor was on the car. That way just nothing will bind up or, be too slippery if you have oil on them. These did not come with oil on them because I got them direct. But sometimes if the rotors sit around for a while, they'll oil them up so they don't rust. So that's why you're going to want to use some brake parts cleaner if you notice a film of oil on your rotors. One of the final steps now is to put the cap back on the reservoir here. As you can see, as we pushed in all the rotors, you can see I actually have fluid up to here now. So if you have fluid that's above the orange filter here, you are going to want to drain all of that out, just so you can press all those pads in and this doesn't overflow. Once the reservoir is all set, we can reinstall this plastic cover piece here. There is going to be, it lines up in here, and then the 3/4 turn bolts here, and a pop tab that goes right down here. All right guys, so we're in the car now, and the first thing you're gonna wanna do before you turn anything on is just depress the brake pedal a couple times to get it hard. That way we can make sure like there's no leaks anywhere or anything, and then we can turn the car on. The vacuum will kick in, and it'll press down like normal. So you can press it in like normal, make sure everything feels all right, kind of like how it did is what it should feel like. And there shouldn't be any lights on the dash. And the next part is we're going to take it out now, get it up maybe like 20-30 miles an hour, and then slam on the brakes to get them broken in. You're going to want to do that 5-6 times and slowly increase speed each time. So I'm going to start out probably like 30 first, then do 40 or 50, and then about 60 miles an hour. Do 2 or 3 at 60 miles an hour, and then after that they should be sufficiently broken in. What you don't want to do is come to like easy stops, especially for a long time. You want to just press the pedal as hard as possible. Even the ABS kick in, that would be pretty good. So other than that though, that's just gonna break them in, and we'll see how that looks after I do it. All right guys, so I went around the block. It's like about 5 miles, just breaking them in. So here's what they look like right now. 5 miles isn't really gonna do much, but they're bedded now. So now just driving it around, it should feel fine. The pedal feels just like it did before. There's no lights on the dash. So everything should be all set. And that should do it for this video. So thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments.